competitive game program for Guild Wars 2. We want to take a little bit of time to give you a background, in case you don't know the developer-publisher, ArenaNet, behind Guild Wars 2, talk a little bit about the game itself. Then we'll go into the details of what our competitive program is about, why we don't call it esports. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about where it's gone, where it's going, and then hopefully have some time at the end for some questions. So we're ArenaNet. We're in Bellevue. That happens to be the city here. We're kind of around the corner. We've been around for a long time. Guild Wars 1 came out and just had its 10th anniversary, right? Yep, 10th anniversary. Guild Wars 2 came out in 2012. It's a giant MMORPG. Is that, no, can't hear me? Is that what it is?
Had it turned off. Now I don't have to yell.
There we go.
I can talk quieter now. So let's talk about Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2, like I said, came out 2012. It's an MMORPG that is a massive product. Some of the statistics are pretty overwhelming. We're well over 5 million units globally. The game is released in 5 different languages: Europe, North America, China. It is backed by ArenaNet, that is over a 350-person company. We have been supporting this game, since it's an online game, ever since. And so our unique business model, I think, is one of the reasons that we have been able to carve out a niche, as well as the product being great. The game itself is a 90+ Metacritic review score. But our game is buy to play, so you buy the game for $50, get the box, and then play it as long as you want to. There's no subscription fee. Very different, I guess, than both the free-to-play market and a subscription-based market. So we do have kind of a unique offering there. It is a huge, successful game, and for some people, it may be completely, they may be completely unaware that we have a competitive element, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But for us, we started out when the game launched with a mode of play, PvP, in the game that was built from the ground up to be able to support a community that wants fair and balanced competitive gameplay. So Josh will go into a little of the details of the game itself, but there is no buying of power, there's equalized statistics, so it is very built to support that sort of game element. But why did we want to go after competitive gaming? Well, obviously it's a huge growth area in the games. The statistics are pretty amazing, not only in participation, but in viewership. And for us, we're really, from a marketing side, very interested in that. Yesterday, Twitch got up here and talked a little bit about the growth of their channel. And of course, we're keenly interested in that channel because 100 million unique viewers of core PC gamers is primarily laser targeted at the same audience that we're interested in. And most of what is being watched there is competitive gaming. And so we have built a program that is trying to take advantage of that, so that our game is not only enjoyable to play, but also enjoyable to watch. And it's only going to grow bigger than this. And so the key components of building a competitive gameplay are, first of all, you don't call yourself esports. And we'll talk a little bit about that. You've got to have the community embrace that first. But what are the values of having a competitive gameplay platform? For us, the numbers that we have, the KPIs that we're tracking, when we look at segments of player types, so we have people that play primarily PvE. We have people that play world versus world, which is another component of our game, or dungeons. The people that play primarily PvP are the stickiest players in our game. They play more time, they last longer in our game, their lifetime values are thus higher. So basically, playtime equals money to us. I told you earlier that our business model is not based on subscription. We sell a box, but then we do have an MTX store in the game. And so majority and lion's share of our revenue after launching in 2012 actually comes from the MTX store. So the more we can get people to log in day after day and play longer amounts of time, the more money we can make. So Josh, I don't know if you want to kind of take over here and talk a little bit of it from the community side.
Yeah, so like Steve said before, he's head of marketing, so more of like the business side of things. My wheelhouse is more of the execution and actually making the events happen and whatnot, and so more of the community perspective as well. So competitive play is evergreen. Look at League of Legends, for example. They've got one map that they play predominantly for competitive play, and people have been playing that map for years and years and years. And obviously Riot's doing some upkeep on that map, but it's for the most part the same map with some altered mechanics. And competitive play across games is the same thing for us, right? We've got about 5 maps right now that we use in the competitive rotation, and every experience you have on that map is going to be different from every game that you play. So basically, you make the map one time, you build it one time, and it is sustainable for a really, really long time. So self-sustaining community engagement, we have a lot of community-run events, a lot of community-run tournaments, and that doesn't cost anything to us. We built that infrastructure. It's already done, right? It's already in the game, so people can create a tournament, run it, have thousands of people tune in and watch that to no cost to us, and it's just free advertising. And the last part here is storylines and drama. People love drama. We live in the age of TMZ and all those kind of things, and people love hearing about who got kicked from what team and what happened to this one guy and why is he so bad now? He used to be so good, and people just eat that stuff up. And having a competitive environment allows that to be a new source of engagement for our players.
So we talked about Guild Wars 2 being this really big, hugely successful game, big giant company over there, 350 employees. So it'd be a natural that we'd be a hit in esports, right? Well, there are some issues that we face that some of the other games that Josh mentioned, League of Legends, Dota, CSGO, don't face, that we do. We're lots of things to lots of people. MMO by nature allows for lots of different types of gameplay and game players. And so there are people that just craft in our game. There are people that stand around in cities and chat. There are people that love to go do dungeons. And so it's difficult from a communication standpoint to single out one play type for that. So that's a barrier that we have in establishing our competitive environment. We're known for big dragons and episodic content that we release over time and player versus environment. And those things aren't necessarily that attractive to competitive players who want to kill other real people. And so these are the barriers that we faced when we first started to launch and put sustaining effort around building a competitive program. Other things that are hindrances to us. I mentioned that you have to buy it. There's a price barrier for us, which is a big hurdle. A lot of the top guys in the competitive play space are free to play. So very low barrier to entry, download, start into the game, figure out if you want to spend money later on. Since we have all these different play mechanics, PvE and dungeons and fractals, our development team are spread, and there are teams that work on all of those different components. Not all of the people that work at ArenaNet are working on competitive development projects. So we have limited resources when it comes to improvements or new maps or new leaderboards or ladder functionality, that sort of thing. So.
All right, so I'll take over again here. So we kind of wanted to chronicle where we started and kind of the things that we've encountered. And as Steve said, it's not, we're a massively successful game, but it's not just an easy waltz into being a huge successful competitive game. So in the beginning, about 2 years ago, we had more of like a grassroots movement. There wasn't a ton of support that we were doing for the competitive scene, but the players really wanted it. So they were running tournaments on their own, funding their own prize pools, doing crowdsourced funding. Curse and MMORPG.com and MLG actually pitched in and ran some tournaments for us as well, pitching in their own money to run those events. But basically it was kind of I wouldn't say wake-up call, but it kind of lets us know, like, there's actually some potential here. Maybe we should invest some more resources into this and see what we can do with it. So at the time we devoted internal resources to actually kind of manage this stuff. We had a PvP community coordinator, and under her guidance we started the Authorized Shoutcaster program, which is really our tool for harvesting the resources of the community. A lot of what we do is actually volunteer and player run, again, keeping the cost down for us. We've got a team of I would say about 30 admins that are all volunteer based that run events. And these events could scale anywhere from 8-team tournaments with 40 players up to 256 teams, where we have thousands of players that are playing on a single day in these tournaments. And without those community volunteers, really wouldn't be able to do that. And then we also have the third-party tournament support program. At some point, we decided that we should probably get some rewards to these players who are competing. So we give away in-game prizes. So we have gems, which is kind of our in-game. How would you describe that?
In-game currency?
In-game currency that you purchase with real money. And
right.
we give to players as prizes for tournaments. And also some in-game items like miniatures, which is kind of a collectible that people use in-game. And went so far as in 2013, we ran our first tournament with a $10,000 prize pool, and that was kind of where we kicked off.
Starting small, right?
Yes, starting small, building up as we went on. So from the initial events that we ran, we noticed that engagement was fairly limited. We were targeting a very small subset of players, like the most hardcore of the hardcore, which isn't the biggest group of players. Guild Wars 2 is inherently a casual game, I would say, just the way that we do progression, and so we're really targeting a small part of our player base. So what we realized, and this is something that game developers struggle with constantly, is making players feel rewarded for their game time, for the time that they invest in the game, right? And so what we did is we developed a reward scheme for our events that felt good for players all the way down to the very bottom of the brackets. So what we did for the first tournament is if you won a single round in that event, you would get a reward. You get a little llama mini that people clamor for. They love it. Anyway, so we actually expected to do about 8 to 16 teams in this tournament, and the day the signups happened, I think we had about 125 teams sign up on the first day. It was kind of a wake-up call for us, and it just reaffirmed that rewards, no matter what, whether it's a competitive player or a casual player, are extremely important in driving participation. We ran Tournament Legends 2 a couple months later, and we had even more teams than we could handle, and there's really no way that we could actually accommodate all those teams playing. So the next logical step from there, from doing these community-run events where we give in-game prizes, was to start providing real money for players to aspire towards. So we partnered with ESL, and we've actually partnered with them in multiple ways. But we'll be doing the ESL Go For Cups, and this is an opportunity for teams on a weekly basis to compete for $500 per region. And we've seen, we got some slides later on that Steve will go through, but we can actually show players, since the inception of these events, we could show players joining into PvP and becoming more PvP-focused players, which, as he says, leads to better retention for those players, and long-term, they monetize better.
Yeah, we'll show you some slides at the end around participation spikes that had happened in these tournaments that Josh was talking about. One of the things that we noticed that we wanted to grow or solve was massive fluctuations of player participation based on tournaments and reward structure. And so when we came to ESL, we started talking to them about what some of our growing pains were with the competitive component of our game. And they said, what you need to do is you need to establish regularity. You have to have a go-to tournament that is consistent day in, day out, week in, week out, that people know that they can always come back to have a home, if you will. And so we partnered with ESL on what's called the Go For Cups that was heck or high water. Every single Sunday in North America and Europe, there were tournaments going on for real cash prizes. Even if it was Easter Sunday, if the Sunday happened on Christmas, you could go and you could take your team and you could win money. And this really helped smooth out that curve that we talked about.
And here's just got Kalaris here. Who's actually, if you guys are familiar with esports at all, Kalaris is a really well-known StarCraft 2 caster. We've been partnering with him. He actually shoutcasts some of our bigger events. Anyways, just kind of an example. We've been working with them. One added benefit, though, with the ESL Go For Cups is not only is it keeping those players engaged at the top end of the spectrum, the guys who are kind of setting the meta for the game, so to speak, but it's also keeping our casual fans and our less hardcore players engaged, because all those events are live streamed on Twitch. So every Sunday, again, talking about consistency, players know they can tune in at 10 a.m. in the morning and watch all the European teams clash. And then at 1 p.m., they can tune in and watch all the North American teams clash. And that's where we start to get some of that drama and some of that storylines we talked about before. Players tune in every Sunday and they watch their favorite teams, their favorite celebrities, either win or lose, and they talk about it constantly in chat. Just huge engagement for us.
Yeah, you really can't buy that sort of entertainment. You can't create it, manufacture it yourself. It has to emerge from the community, and it's basically reality TV for gamers, right? Did you hear that Helsith might switch teams and abandon the Civilized Gentleman? Oh no, what's the problem going on there? Oh, he had a fight with Sizer. Oh my God, are they going to break up? They're like the best duo in the whole meta. What's going to happen now? Is the Orange Logo going to take over the leadership on the rank? Like, you can't create that yourself, and it's extremely valuable from a marketing standpoint because it's very low effort to get a great amount of reward and keep your players engaged.
Yep. On that same note, we'll talk about the World Tournament Series here now, but when we were at PAX Prime this year, we had a tournament, and players who aren't normally competitive players, but were around our booth when we were showing off our new expansion, were talking about the tournaments. They're getting really into it. They were watching it on the big screen, and you'd walk by them the day after the tournament and hear them still sitting there talking about what happened on the day before. So there's a lot of engagement, even for players who aren't normally engaged by competitive play. They were still interested and still talking about it for us. So anyways, the success of the ESL Go For Cups led us to start running the World Tournament Series, which is kind of our flagship tournament event. And this is something that we've partnered with our Chinese publishing partner Kongjong and also to a lesser extent ESL is kind of the executive or the kind of handle the production and execution of our events. So it's for the first year, which this started in China in December of last year. We've committed to 3 events over this past year. The first one was in Beijing, the second was in Boston at PAX East, and then the next one's actually being in Cologne in August. And what we're doing here is we have qualifiers happen online, anyone can sign up. That's actually the beauty of our the way that we run the system, is that any player feels like they have the ability to join in if they're good enough and actually participate in these events. You look at other games like really League of Legends or really anything, there's kind of a huge barrier there for competition. You have to be on a team, you have to be part of Cloud9, you have to be part of TSM, CLG, to be able to get into these kind of events. But for us, as long as you're a good player and you jump in and you're able to compete on that level, you're able to sign up and play.
Yeah, this is some highlight footage of the first event in China. The event was put together on a production stage, basically a TV set in Beijing. Our publisher made a deal with a television network there called G4?
GTV.
GTV. So this was actually broadcast in China over cable networks. We sent 2 teams, one from North America, one from Europe, and there were 2 teams from China, so 4 teams total. Here's some of those tough guys right there. And they competed in a ladder-style event. We had shoutcasters from, Josh himself was there casting, and another guy from North America, Blue. This was live streamed as well as put on television. It was live streamed on Twitch by us. Anything else we want to say?
Yeah, so one other note. You saw the guys were walking around. We had them at the Forbidden City in the Great Wall, and I think we've got this on another slide as a bullet point. But an added benefit of what we do with these events is we kind of treat the players like celebrities. We take them to really nice restaurants. We take them to the wall. We kind of take them out for a little bit of a tourism, right? And the players are evangelists for our game. Like they're already invested in our game, right? They've already spent thousands of hours playing, becoming the best. But then they go to these events and they go back and they tell everyone on Twitch, on the forums, on other social media platforms, just about how great of a time that they had, even if they lost. Even if they went there and got decimated, lost all 4 games they played, they still had such a great time that it's just positive. It's just positive for us, no matter what.
Yeah, these guys are all, famous in their sphere of influence, right? Within the Guild Wars 2 world, if Fantaram tells you this is how you should spec your elementalists, everyone listens, right? And so when he goes live on Twitch and he's just come back from Beijing and had an amazing time, and Josh was picking up the bill for him, and he's eating great food, and he's taken to the Great Wall of China, and he's talking about ArenaNet really gets it. They're totally supportive of the scene. That he then is the authentic voice for us, and creates that loyalty that he's been treated well by us, and so he's going to continue to talk to the people that look up to him and get them to be interested and be loyal to the game themselves. So, video keeps going and going. I'm going to go past it. So talk a little bit about some of the lessons that we've learned so far. So I'd say, we're pretty modest in where we have been and now are at with our competitive sports program. We are by no means League of Legends, Dota, CSGO. We aspire to get there. As we mentioned, there are several burdens that we have to overcome. There's many resources that we don't have access to that these bigger companies, Riot and Valve, have tremendous amounts of resources that they can throw at. But what we have learned is consistency is key. We talked about when we did the partnership with ESL, and they said, look, you got to do every single week and be there day in and day out for a year, 2 years. That way you'll build that retention element within that player base, but also the viewer base. And so people know when to tune in all the time. And so we have X percentage more people that watch what's going on than actually participate, and that's just as important for us. We talked about treating these guys like they are celebrities, and then if you do, they in turn reward you with their praise about their game, their authentic message. They become evangelists for us and are really helping us sustain and build community within Guild Wars 2. Talk a little about rewards.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, but obviously having compelling rewards for players to earn as they play, even if they're not going to be, the top competitor in an event, they want to feel that they, spent their time wisely. Like there's so many games in the market right now, and so many things they can do, especially even in our game, that they want to make sure that the time they're spending playing these events feels good to them, even if they don't actually place, in the #1 slot. And to kind of jump down to the next one here, so need tiers of participation for every skill level. Something we've been really working on right now is kind of developing I would say like an amateur circuit, places for players to go where they don't have to worry about playing with the sharks. Obviously, we have some players who spend thousands of hours in our game and are amazing and will just completely wreck people, right? Who are
like you.
Yes. People who are brand new, and that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good as a tournament experience to jump in and get seeded against the top team in your first round, and you're just doing it for the first time. And so right now we're really focusing on building a place for these players to go in and actually learn how to play the game and play in a competitive level, and so they can kind of move up the pyramid. I don't have it in the slide, but we talk about a lot of the time is kind of the pyramid of where players land. At the bottom, obviously, you have all your casual players. Right above them is competitive casual. Then you have your hardcores, and you have like your most elite players. And right now, it's really important for us to move those players from the casual tier up a little bit into the competitive casual. We want them participating in competitive content as often as possible. Another key learning that we have is that players who engage in every part of our game, whether it's dungeons or PvP or PvE or War vs. World, they retain better. Players who focus on one single game mode only, no matter what, still have lower retention rates than players who experience the entirety of our game.
Right, but building on that, the last point here is we have seen that if we can get just even lean or casual Guild Wars 2 players playing PvP regularly, their minutes go up. And as I said at the beginning of this talk, minutes equal dollars. So it is important to offer different entry points for different players because PvP, player versus player, can be quite intimidating for a casual player, somebody that is very interested in doing dungeons or role playing, might be overwhelmed a bit with the aggressive nature of some of our gameplay modes. There's different personalities obviously in there, and then chat can get toxic sometimes. And so if we can offer different levels of participation, what we've been able to see is we can drive playtime by adding PvP as a gameplay mechanic that players regularly log into. Some charts here to show what we were talking about earlier is this is the entire lifetime of Guild Wars 2, and it is a percentage of players that play PvP as a gameplay type within the game. You can see the big spikes and peaks and valleys in here, what I was talking about earlier when we ran a spiked event like Tournament of Legends and we put new rewards into the game. Lots of people came in and then dropped out. And then later on, if you look at the right side of the map, there's still a couple of reward spikes, but you can see that steady growth. We believe that steady growth has been by establishing a more consistent competitive play space. Another way to look at it is, it's pretty light. If you look at just PvP players and how we break them down into the two segments, core versus lean PvP players. Core would mean that somebody who plays PvP primarily in our game, play that game mode more than anything else. Fairly consistent on the overtime playtime, but in the lean or the kind of people that dabble with PvP, you've seen a lot of growth as we started adding in some of the new mechanics like our Gopher Cups and then Spike Up and our big WTS events, which are fairly new in the program. So, you talk about this? Wrapping up?
Yeah, so I guess to wrap things up here. So we talked about struggles and things that we're still trying to overcome. So what we're looking for right now is providing non-event-based incentive for hardcore players. Right now, if you're a really good player like Helseth or Fantram, like Steve mentioned before, really all you have to log in for on a week-to-week basis is playing these weekly events. And we want to make sure that we're giving content to players to log in on every single day. We really want Guild Wars 2 to be more of like a lifestyle brand. Like this should be part of your routine. You log in every day before you go to school, before you go to work, and when you get home. That's really what we're kind of driving for. Developing a more cohesive tournament ecosystem. This kind of factors into that first bullet point. Our WTS events this year, to be candid, are kind of satellite events. There's not really a lot of connection between what happens in China and what happens in Boston, what's going to happen in Cologne. What we want to develop is more of a cohesive system so you can kind of see a progression from someone who starts day one, they get their team together and they progress through and they make it into the finals at some point during the year. There should be something you do along that way that kind of grants you access to that final event. And building a more cohesive system where a lot of events contribute to one larger event is kind of where we're going to go with things. This next bullet point, this is almost kind of selfish on my part, but I think that's really important for us right now is, as Steve mentioned, I'm on the marketing team, but I'm actually embedded with the development team. And this has actually been really great for me and the team as a whole because we can give marketing insight on features that are in development as they're coming out. There needs to be a strong relationship between marketing and development at every step of the way, and being able to sit with that development team every single day has really been helping with that.
Yeah, I mean, We talked about the importance of viewership versus participation. Twitch right now is the dominant source for that. But we're not putting all of our eggs into the Twitch basket, making sure that we're not dedicated to one specific platform. As probably you've seen, YouTube has made statements that they're going to go heavy into broadcast and streaming, Steam, Valve, lots of other console platforms. So streaming is really important from us, and growing the viewership based on our competitive mechanics. We're talking about better systems to monetize our player base, but probably the thing that we're most excited about is we're about to launch our first expansion for Guild Wars 2 this summer, and there is a brand new gameplay mode. We can show you a trailer here of that we think could be the next step for us.
And I'll talk over it just a little bit here. So what we have right now in Guild Wars 2, the player has been playing for a little over 2 years, is a conquest game mode. If you guys are competitive players, you're probably sort of familiar with that. Basically, there's capture points in the map, and if you hold those capture points, you generate points to your team. With Stronghold, we're changing our direction a little bit here. This is a mixture of some elements from Guild Wars 1 GVG, where the primary win mechanic was killing your enemy lord, with a little bit of MOBA mechanics. So we have enemy lords on each side of the map you've got to kill. The whole goal is to take out that enemy lord. We've also got NPCs that push down the lane and take out gates. So think of more of like I guess kind of Heroes of the Storm kind of mechanic there. But players have to spend supply, which is an on-map resource, to generate these NPCs to push down the map. And the idea is that this new map gives players a lot more that they can do in a map, a lot more roles. No longer is PvP only strictly about being the best mechanical player. There's other things you can do as a casual player, like run supply or kind of shepherd these NPCs down the lane. That's going to open up to participation to a lot more people.
Yep, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. It's really, 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 really important.